to the ascending phase. At the start of a new age, the sixth sun, the Mayan creation mythology states that a new vision quest is required. Let's look at the big picture. For the world has become one global village, and we all need to adapt and learn to live with this new reality. Over the past 5,000 years, civilizations were born and civilizations were destroyed. The ancient Maya themselves never experienced the end of the 13 Baktun cycle themselves, but they planted a seed, which is now growing, and come 2012 might very well blossom into a flower. The world has become one, for better or for worse. We have come a tremendously long way, but if we ever want to reach the center of our galaxy and learn about the cradle of life, we have an even longer voyage ahead of us.
Now, one of the things about 2012 which needs to be pointed out is actually that this galactic alignment is Earth-centric. It's us seeing the sun in the galactic center from the position of the Earth. It's a symbolic event. It's not meant to be taken as literal fact. Like so many things about ancient civilizations and their obsession with the skies, it involves this element of symbolism. They were using this as a metaphor of giving us a truth. Perhaps, for example, that this pool, the galactic center, was once the birth of our sun. But it's a symbolic message. It hasn't to be taken literally. Far too many things in this day and age are taking literal, and that is a problem when we're trying to understand ancient civilizations and why they go on about 2012 or calendars or anything else for that matter. Mayans are beginning to get their voice back, and we are beginning to understand part of their wisdom, and to some extent that it really is what 2012 is all about. Today, the 2012 phenomenon is about Mayans. It's a Mayan date, and it begins to explain to us how the Mayan worked. It's about going into the heartland of the Yucatan and being confronted with their wonderful structures. It's about Mayan centricity. It's about telling us that they have this culture which is wonderful, which is beautiful, and which might hold certain clues to us. And just focusing on 2012 and the end date of the calendar is unfortunately a very eliminating effect. We should look at the Mayan culture as a whole, and I think when we do that, we come to the true essence and true beauty of what 2012 is all about. So if ever there is an archetype at work around 2012, it's very much the fact that the Mayans are recovering their lost identity. Now, within the Mayan mindset, there's one interesting aspect about 2012, which is that all of their calendars in the past had to do with sacrifice. Sacrifice, very much like Jesus is said to have sacrificed himself for the salvation of Christianity and mankind as such. Sacrifice was also at the very heart of the Mayans. Now, with their identity, their drive of becoming once again leaders, very much the question I have on my mind is, how are they going to mark 2012? Because they will want to mark 2012. And the idea, which seems to have germinated in my mind at least, is that you might find that over the next few years, a leader will come from the Mayan world. Hugo Chavez is probably the man closest to it at the moment in time. But a figure like him, a person who will stand and symbolize not so much just Middle America, but South America and Middle America as a whole, the Latin American spirit, that kind of person might get projected onto the world scene and might start to take the focus away from the traditional media culture, which is very much focused on Europe and America and the Middle East, and will start to look upon this continent and start to use it as a whole new means. And that might be what 2012 is all about. Now, that's not the sacrifice bit. The sacrifice might actually be that you might come across some political assassinations whereby people really want to make a martyr out of somebody. Hopefully it won't get to the point of an assassination, but definitely the martyrship, this sacrifice, is so embedded not just within the Aztec Mayan history, but very much within mankind as a whole, and it is one of the hidden dangers, I think, of the 2012 mindset. The one thing you have to remember about 2012 is that it's a fact that the Mayan calendar ends. That's all we know, but it does mean that there is something about 2012. It was symbolized as something by the ancient Mayans. That's all. Everything else is an extrapolation. But the question is not so much, I think, what 2012 is, but what we can make 2012 to be. Because just like for them, a world is ending, a new world is there to be created. And with everything, it's us who has to become central. It's mankind who has to take its central position and not see itself so much as a victim, but as a leader. And very much that's also the mindset of the ancient Mayans, who are going and being removed from the victim role, 400 years of suppression, and who are looking for a leader, who are looking for a voice. And with the Mayans, perhaps the rest of the world should also look upon themselves and towards leaders who will actually lead rather than pretend that they are being led or that they are leaders. We can make this world into something else, and that perhaps is something, a message which we need to take away from the 2012 phenomenon, but specifically from the 2012 phenomena from within a Mayan mindset rather than from within the Western mindset, which sees 2012 very much as catastrophe and doom and gloom, and who's really only using 2012 as another example of the 1999 phenomena involving Nostradamus and his predictions. We really have a challenge here, and if anything, 2012 needs to be the positive antidote to the negative 1999 Nostradamus antidote of doom and gloom.
The Green Party is so attached to its global warming and it's terrible and must have been doing something about its greenhouse gases and its pollution, that they don't want to hear that that's not happening. Because their reason for being is being challenged. The very reason that they sell themselves and they get their backing and support, they have to protect that.
Mars and the other planets are also warming up. Are they driving a lot of trucks on Mars? Well, I don't see. There are 2 rovers now on Mars. Well, okay, there is climate change.
What we're seeing today in terms of global warming and climate change and all the rest of it that goes with that, I do not believe is being caused by mankind and the emissions from our cars and factories and so on. It's the sun. And the sun itself is being driven by cosmic forces as well. That we live within a universe of change, and it's foolish of us to think otherwise.
A lot of the cycles, and people are talking about the sun entering a new place of the galaxy, a new part of the galaxy that we haven't been around in for hundreds of millions of years. There are lots of unknowns on an astrophysics level. None of these scientists know exactly what drives the cycles of the sun.
Nobody knows the theory that the Maya knew. No scientist today knows the theory about the sunspot cycle. It took me many years to find and to decode this theory. If there is one solar flare, 2.5 times bigger than the one from 1989 that destroyed the electric grid system in Canada, then the whole worldwide grid system will be completely shut down.
In studies of geomagnetic reversals in the laboratory, they found that it would occur when the geomagnetic field weakens and reduces, and you would also get areas of inverted field breaking out in sort of odd areas. And both of those things have now come to pass.
I can tell you, as a former Earth scientist, is that we are seeing measurable parameters that are changing and appear to be converging. For example, the magnetic fields of the Earth are in rapid decline right now. They reached a peak about 2,000 years ago. They have declined consistently, never looked back since then. We are now at the lowest magnetic point in global magnetics that we've been the last 2,000 years.
Now that those who sit in higher positions of power and influence, they know all this. I have absolutely no doubt that they know about this.
Whether it's disaster, or nirvana, depends on, where you are. If it could be nirvana if you're, some poor guy, trying to scratch a living in the dust bowls of Africa, or it could be disaster if you happen to be one of the ruling classes who control everyone.
Unless we have a radical change of consciousness, that's the future that very large numbers of people seem to be okay with. And that's what I find scary, is a future with no soul.
For those who have stepped forth into the enigmatic and complicated world of UFO research, they know that it is rife with division. But here, just like religion, we have another reason for the numerous splits, as the enigma really comes down to the individual human experience. There are many who have claimed that they have been visited by aliens or beings from other dimensions. The vast majority, like people who see ghosts and apparitions, believe in the data from experiences they encountered with their very own eyes. The unconscious mind remains a mystery because we are simply not conscious of it. We must imagine what it is like inside this huge domain on the other side of our daily realities. Occasionally, people recall their encounters in this strange world.